One of the most popular tutorials I've ever done was a shoe design tutorial in Adobe Illustrator. Made an image something like this, and it was an image-based tutorial, so you would walk through it and look at all the pretty pictures. And unfortunately, as much work as that was to do, it apparently wasn't very effective, because I still get questions to this day with people asking me about different parts of the process that didn't work. So I thought I'd update this shoe rendering tutorial for Adobe CS4 and also in video form. So let's hop into Illustrator. And I've done an updated shoe design here, and this is basically done using the brush tool. So if you're not familiar with that, I'm going to lock the layer that is on, because each of these items is a whole bunch of vector art. This is not drawn in Photoshop or anything like that. This is all drawn in Illustrator. So if I select my new layer here, I can use my Wacom pen. I'm going to hit the B key for brush, and that's going to activate the brush tool. And I have this brushes palette over here off the screen that you can't see. And this brush right here, I've just double-clicked it to modify it. And I think it was originally kind of elliptical, so I drug it out to make it circular, set the diameter to 3 points, and changed the variation from fixed to pressure, and then made the variation 3 points, which means that what you end up with is, when I draw, I get pressure sensitivity with my pen tool, and then also, or brush tool that is. Also, as I'm working, if I draw something and I want to erase it, I hit Shift E on the keyboard, which is the eraser tool right here, which is pretty new, and then I can go in and erase parts of these lines, and then go back and hit B again to add stuff back in, and then Shift E to erase. Now the one kind of annoying thing with the eraser tool is that it does get rid of your line weight. So if you have, let's see, I'll show you. I have a pressure sensitive tapered line here. Now if I hold Shift E and I erase part of that line, all the pressure goes away from that line. So just so you know. But that's basically how I'm working here. So I would just draw, I just kind of freehanded out what I thought this should look like, roughly grouped the resulting curves, and let me just cover a couple more things with the brush tool, just because I know you're going to run into them. When you're drawing with the brush tool, you'll notice that it's pretty intuitive for me and it just kind of works. There's a couple of settings you need to set. I'm going to double click on the brush tool, and right here I've got fidelity set all the way down and smoothness set all the way down. If I turn up the smoothness, for instance, and start drawing, it actually changes my lines quite a bit to smooth them out. Now that can be handy at times, but typically I just want it to draw whatever my hand does. I just find it's easier to control. Also, do not fill new brush strokes. Do not keep selected. If I have keep selected on, then whenever I draw a line, it keeps it selected. I find that annoying. And lastly, this is the most important one, edit selected paths. By default, both of those are on. So if I draw something, it keeps it selected, and then if I draw out here, it edits the selected path. So you'll be trying to draw stuff and things are changing and it's just confusing. All you have to do to turn that off is double click, turn off both of those checkboxes, click OK. Alright, so that's the brush tool in a nutshell. And then if you want, you could make a new layer underneath your lines, lock your lines layer, and then use this tool right here. It's Shift B for the Blob brush tool. So Shift B, and then I can hold the right bracket, which is to the right of the P key on your keyboard. And as I hold that, it is changing the size of my brush in and out. And I can select a color and start coloring. And I can just color in parts of my shoe however I deem is appropriate. And the beauty of this is the Blob brush tool, it kind of automatically does booleans in a way. So whenever you make a brush stroke, it joins with the other brush strokes around it. Sorry, a Blob brush stroke, that is. It joins with other brush strokes around it. Okay. But I'm not going to color it right now. We're just going to start right into our line work, and then I'm going to add color later. So the first thing I want to do is I can select this layer, the whole layer, and use my transparency palette right here. I can set the opacity way on down. So this is pretty faint. Lock the layer, and then go back to my lines layer. And just start drawing my lines. Now, the first thing I'm going to draw are the basic outlines of these shoes. Just the total outline. It's going to be used as a mask, so I'll just take my pen tool. I'm going to use my mouse now instead of my Wacom, just because I think it's easier with the pen tool. I'll start somewhere. Just start drawing very loose, but very smooth curves. I'm going to hit, right now it's automatically, you can see all this snapping that it's doing, all this stuff on my screen that's kind of annoying me right now. So I'm going to hit Apple U on the keyboard, which is for View, where is it, Smart Guides right here, Apple U, or Control U on the PC. If you turn off Smart Guides, then all that snapping will go away. Now I'll click on my line to continue it, and then continue right on down. Okay, now that's just about it. I've drawn an outline of each of my shoes, and I've tried to make these outlines as editable as possible. And by that I mean I have as few points on my curves as possible, so it's very easy to make changes to these profiles because I have very few control points to work with. So when you're drawing lines with the pen tool, try to make them as simple and clean as possible.